You're listening to 66.6 FM, Radio TOVH, The Flush.
You're listening to the Toilet of Hell radio show. I'm Joe Thrashandkill. With me, as always, I've got 365 Days of Horror, and we have a very special guest with us today. You have probably read his work if you are somewhat familiar with metal or the internet. We have, of course, Vince Neilstein of Metalsucks fame on with us. Vince, how you doing?
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, thanks for doing this. It's kind of you're the how does the Greek lore go? We were birthed from your head.
I guess you could say that. You guys were getting all unruly in the comments and decided to start your own thing. So it's all good. I'm all about more metal sites on the internet all the time.
You have you've been doing Metal Sucks for quite a long time. You and your hetero life partner Axel, you started this together. Was it 10 years ago now?
Yeah, well, he really is in many ways my hetero life partner. We've known each other since kindergarten,
Oh wow.
and yeah, I mean, we grew up together. We weren't always necessarily besties during the entire period of our lives between kindergarten and when we started it, but we always stayed in touch and we hung out periodically and we went to shows together and like any friends do, sometimes you're hanging out a lot and sometimes you're exploring your own paths in life. But yeah, we started it about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. It was a stoned idea in between Children of Bodom and Amon Amarth. We kind of just had this idea to do like a metal version of Pitchfork, which at the time was like the music site, I guess.
Oh
That
yeah,
was,
definitely.
and maybe it still is. I don't know really. I don't read Pitchfork, but it was the one that like people paid attention to for that mattered, and they gave snarky opinions and they were funny and they were dicks, but they were smart, and that was kind of what we wanted to do, but for metal, because such a thing really didn't exist in the metal world.
Yeah, no, I was a daily Pitchfork reader for a long, long time, but I'll never forgive them for their abomination of a review with Andrew WK's "I Get Wet."
Yeah, I see that mentioned all the time on Twitter and different places, but I don't think I've ever actually read it.
I don't. At the time, though, at that era of Web 1.5, I guess they were the coolest cats around. I mean, they reviewed a Jet record with just a video of a monkey pissing in its own mouth, and I mean that was pretty next level stuff. So I was hooked, even though they didn't really cover the kind of music that I liked. I just enjoyed the style, and I
Yeah,
guess
they kind of had everyone's attention. Like, do they still do stuff like that, or is it more tamed down?
it's way more tame. Nothing. I guess they're more into prestige blog work now, like long reads and really elegant web design. So nothing is as fun and as dangerous as that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we've probably gotten tamed down too in the 10 years since we began. I guess it's just the natural course of things. But I think also Pitchfork got acquired by some bigger company, right? Or am I making that
Yeah,
up?
I think it might have been like Viacom or something like that.
I think you
Just
might be right.
some behemoth. So they might not
Yeah.
have the freedom to say this album is deserving of a monkey pissing in its mouth. But when you guys started, like, you were both working, full time jobs. How did you find the time to do this?
So we both had desk jobs where we could kind of in between actual work. I mean, like we were looking at Blabbermouth and at that time Metal Sludge, and gee, I guess like MySpace pages, and like we were looking at that stuff anyway, sort of just all day as fans. So between actual work, we would just find time to pound out a couple posts wherever we could, and I mean then we would go home at night and we would actually write stuff for the next day. It wasn't like it is now where if you publish a news story the next morning when something happened the night before, you're super late. You could like actually get away with posting something the next day and it would still be relevant, especially since we weren't doing what everyone else was doing. We weren't just posting the news, we were giving opinions on it, which no other metal sites were doing at that time. So even if it was a little bit late, there was something interesting being offered. But yeah, we would just go home and write for the next day and kind of schedule it out. And whenever we were able to kind of sneak stuff in at work, we would.
It's kind of a similar deal for the toilet writers in that we don't make a single dime from any of this, so we write when we can. And news is so difficult; it breaks on Twitter, and then the next minute later it's on Metal Injection or Blabbermouth or Lamb Goat or Metal Sucks. How have you been able to navigate that new media trajectory where you have to be on the button at the exact minute?
I mean, you have to. You don't really have a choice. One of the things we recently started doing that we never did before was posting on weekends. It was always Monday to Friday, 10 to 5 every half hour. Or I guess it wasn't at the very beginning. It was less frequently than that. But, basically work day, weekday hours. And, we realized that we were, by the time Monday morning rolled around, it would just be too late to post something that happened on Saturday or even Sunday if it was important. So, we're posting on weekends a little bit, just important stuff. But as far as keeping up with Twitter and what other sites are doing, I mean, we just do our best. We keep an eye on that stuff. I have Twitter open all the time, and I'm looking at it. Facebook also, Instagram. We look at that. We've always gotten a lot of emails from readers, just into the general Metalsucks box if something happens. And I mean, honestly, a lot of what we do and the other sites still is generated by press releases. Like today there was a story about. What was it? I don't remember. Some tour or something, and the press release came in, and it's like, oh, well, no one has written about this yet. Let's get on it right away and, just crank something out so we can be the first up there. But it's not easy, it's difficult. It's really hard. There's a lot of competitors in the space now, and a lot of them are doing a good job. So I think for us, it comes down to kind of the same ideas as when we started the site. It's like, what are we offering that other sites aren't? What are we doing that's interesting and different, that's not just regurgitation of the news or even regurgitation of the news with an opinion? It's how can we go above that? How can we make it funny, or stupid or insightful in a way that other publications aren't?
You mentioned getting emails from readers about news bits and other important information. Has there ever been something from a reader that they sent you that was you really wanted to cover it, but there wasn't a way you can confirm it, and maybe later on someone else got the scoop?
Yeah, that's happened a lot, actually. Something else that's happened is. Well, this is less of an issue now, but for a long time, with worldwide release dates being different than U.S. release dates, and having different record label offices in different countries handling those releases with different publicists, we would be asked, for example, by the U.S. publicist of a band not to post something because it's not quote unquote out in the US yet, even though it's the fucking internet and it's out everywhere. And like, because we have a relationship with this person, we're like, okay, we won't post it. And then every other fucking site posts it, and then it's too late. But yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. Also, sometimes things will happen that we just can't write about, that, we'll get a tip. Like I not going to name names here, but there was a situation several months ago with a member of a band that is currently broken up, who was posting in a fan message board, kind of like talking trash about other members or ex-members of the band. And we have a good relationship with that band's manager and A&R person, and we emailed them. We're like, hey, is this like actually the person, or is it just some jackass pretending to be on a message board? And he's like, no, like that's his handle, like he's an idiot. So, and then, we're like, well, we don't want to, we still want to confirm it. So we emailed the manager, and they're like, actually, could you guys please not post this? It'll just cause problems with everybody. It won't do anybody any good. And then the post was gone, and we didn't write about it because they asked us not to, and it would have potentially been a good story, but I mean, that kind of thing happens all the time.
Well, shit. At what point did you guys decide, like, fuck it, this is what we're going to do? we're going to make our income from this site rather than working our other jobs.
So I don't know how much you guys know about how our business is set up. You guys probably do, but maybe not the people who are listening. We have another company called Blast Beat Network that is an advertising network for metal sites. We sell ads on behalf of, obviously, Metalsucks and Metal Injection, and two owners of Metalsucks and the two owners of Metal Injection are collectively the owners of Blast Beat Network. And we also sell ads for the PRP, Lamb Goat, Gear Gods, which is a site that we started as well, and several other sites. So the way that all ties in is that sometime maybe into our first or second year of being a site, we got together with the Metal Injection guys because they're also here in New York and native New Yorkers just like us. And they'd been doing their thing for a while. We got together, we got super baked, and we're like, how can we team up to do something cool together? You know, like, how can we help each other? They actually originally wanted us to do their blog. They wanted me and Axel to come and just write the Metal Injection blog, because at the time they weren't really doing that like they do now. It was like just the video stuff. You know, the interviews, and they did a lot more live performances back then before venues and bands started getting weird about that. But the idea we came up with was, let's start an advertising network where we sell ads, not just for ourselves, but for several other websites, so we can kind of present this bigger package to advertisers. The idea being, the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. You know, like if we can go to an advertiser and say like, hey, you get all of this stuff in one place, it's a lot easier for them than just doing all those different advertising buys individually. So we started that, I believe, in the summer of 2008, I want to say. And all four of us still working full-time jobs at this time. And by the end of 2009, it had gotten to the point where there was some money coming in, and it wasn't really enough to support four people. But we felt like if we had time during the day, instead of working at our day jobs, to devote to it, that we would be able to make that leap and fill in that gap. So over the course of about 6 months, at the end of 2009, we all quit our jobs and haven't looked back since.
Sweet. I mean, it's got to be, I guess, stressful at times to, not have the safety net of an outside paycheck and just relying on your own wile to pay the rent, right?
I mean, it definitely was at first. You know, like there were some real lean months there, you know, where it was like, oh my God, you know, this is crazy. Like, definitely not earning enough money, dipping into savings, you know, like no health insurance, like no, you know, just like really no fallback. But at this point, 8 years later, it doesn't really feel like that anymore. You know, like we know basically what the range of income is going to be, you know, and because we're owners in the company, it's not always the same. We don't pay ourselves salaries really so much as we, you know, we get paid through the ads we display on Metalsucks, and then we kind of just figure out, you know, after expenses, what's left.
Gotcha.
You know, after we pay our writers and our video people and our server and our email and, you know, all the different people that do stuff for us. So we've been doing it for so long that, you know, it's not really a stress anymore. That said, I do constantly feel like, well, this could be it. You know, maybe this is it. Maybe it's all over. You know, if there's like a particularly bad quarter or, you know, or just like traffic is down 1 month or quarter, you know, like whatever it is, it's like, all right, well, we had a good run. And, but, you know, inevitably things pick back up again and everything's fine. Knock on wood.
Would you ever consider selling Metalsucks should the right offer come along from like Viacom, like we said before, or, Disney, something like that?
We've had offers. Like it never really got to the point where specific dollar figures were discussed, but we've talked to several big media companies about it. And the sentiment when that happened is like, well, why? What else would we do?
Yeah,
Like if like why? This is the coolest job ever. Like, and we're doing well. We're certainly not making tons of money. Absolutely not. But we're supporting ourselves. We can afford a certain level of comfort, and beyond just scraping by. And it's like, well, what else would we do? So if we sell this site, and then what? Like, go get a job, or like fuck that.
I mean, let's say
Like,
that you make a mint on this sale. What would you do? The Office Space question. What would you do with $1 million, man?
Well, in New York, that doesn't get you a whole lot.
Move to Cleveland.
As far as buying property, anyway. But I don't know. I mean, like, I don't know. That would probably keep me and my family going for a few years, and I guess it would probably make sense to speak to some kind of financial advisor and get it invested properly so that it could help itself out rather than just burning through it. But still, like, I come back to the question of like, what would I do with my time? It's like, what would I rather be doing than writing about the genre that I love and going to shows and hanging out and and traveling when the opportunity presents itself. The day may come when I'm totally sick of that and I don't want to do it anymore. And I've definitely thought about that, and there have definitely been moments where certain things have happened where I've just been like, fuck this, like I don't want to do this anymore. But I always come back to what else would I do with my time? Like, what would I rather be doing than this, even if I had a mountain of cash? Like, would that be worth it? And it just that's been the sentiment with both of us, and it's why we haven't ever really entertained offers super seriously.
With $1 million, that's a lot of trips to Gathering of the Juggalos.
True.
Dude, like unlimited Fago.
Yeah, I mean, like, you would need like $100 for unlimited Fago. It's pretty cheap.
That's true. Diet root beer.
Well, most of your money would go to vaccines and stuff like that anyway.
Insulin.
Yeah, seriously. No, man, you got to get the diet root beer. That's the one. Because I went to an ICP show several years ago. A good friend of mine is a big juggalo. Actually works in the metal world at a prominent label, but shall remain nameless. He took me to an ICP show, and I had the best fucking time. And what I learned is that they spray diet root beer because that one doesn't stick.
Yeah, I checked out ICP about 6 months ago. And similar deal, like me and my co-editor W, we just got completely covered in this stuff. I've never felt more disgusting in my life, but I had a great time.
Dude, it's so funny. Like my favorite, dude, this answers your question as far as like what I would do if I just cashed out. I would be the guy in ICP's stage show whose job it is to just keep putting bottles of Fago on the stage. There's like that one guy, like that's his only job. He just keeps putting them there on a table for Shaggy and Jay to just grab.
Something
that's his whole fucking job. He just
something
puts
Fago. A lot of people don't pick up on this, but I don't know how many years ago, but ICP bought part ownership in Fago. So I mean, as they're putting on their stage show, they're no longer giving money to someone else. They're investing it in themselves. It's it's a smart business plan. That vertical integration.
It's genius.
Yeah. Lately I've been trying to be better about growing Toilet of Hell, and in doing so, I've tried to pay more attention to our metrics, our Alexa ranking, or other, meaningless online sites like that, and in doing comparisons. And what I've noticed is that pretty much across the board, most metal sites are just gaining in popularity. It seems like there's been a revitalized interest globally in metal. Have you seen that on your end?
I definitely think there's a more of an interest in metal. I think like you see it with bands like Death Heaven. Where if you go to a Death Heaven show, it's not just metal people there. It's people coming straight after work in a suit and tie. Dudes in flannels, just like all kinds of people. And I think bands like that are opening the door for metal to be more widely accepted. Also Mastodon, I was just at a Mastodon show, same thing, like very universal audience. And then you have outlets like NPR, who, and this has been going on for years already, but when they started covering metal, it was like, wow, like NPR is covering metal? That's crazy, and they have a guy who is a big metalhead who's I think the music editor, or with apologies to Lars, I'm not sure exactly what his title is, but doing great things over there, introducing people who might not necessarily be into metal to metal. So I mean, I think, but on the other hand, it's interesting because metal is sort of more underground than it ever has been. Like it's not in the mainstream at all. You're not hearing it on the radio. There is no MTV. So it just kind of exists in this like middle level, I guess you could say, of not really underground, not really mainstream, but just a very healthy middle class of metal.
It seems to me that as culture has become more granular, with the internet and with the major media being phased out, that's kind of the best that most bands could ever hope to get to is this middle level. Like a Death Heaven level is just your new Michael Jackson, if it were. Nobody's ever going to really have that same level of acclaim.
Yeah,
I mean, because who else is out there? Aside from like a couple of mega artists, Taylor Swift and such, like it doesn't go that way.
Yeah, absolutely, especially not in metal. Like it, and if you're talking like big mega bands in metal, you can probably count them on one hand. Like Metallica, Maiden, I guess like Judas Priest if they ever do anything, Black Sabbath, and then probably a couple others I'm forgetting. And then after that, your next level down is like, I guess you have like Avenged Sevenfold and Volbeat and Five Finger Death Punch, but then like below that, like you're already down to Lamb of God, Killswitch Engage, bands of like Mastodon, bands at that level who are playing to like 2,000 to 4,000 people a night, which is amazing, but those guys certainly aren't rich. Like they're doing well, but they're not rich.
And that top echelon, they've got the one thing in common is that they started in an era where there was one dominant media where you could hear their music. So
yeah, totally. Those bands benefited from MTV and radio.
Yeah.
But like a band like Death Heaven, just because I think they're a good example. Like those guys, I would say, probably don't have to work anymore. Like they probably were able to quit their jobs at some point during the last couple of years. But the truth is like people are surprised, like bands that you see that you think are really successful, very often go home and, those guys got to work as soon as they get off the road, and maybe they do something shitty, or maybe they, run their own studio or teach lessons or whatever. But, it's really hard to make a living.
Yeah, that's definitely. I was talking with the guy from Axe Slasher today, and that it's the norm. Like there's not much of an exception that everybody works. I guess unless you have a trust fund to explore your creativity. I wish I had that.
It's totally the norm, and like Axel actually just totally nailed it. He said if you want to know what bands are making a living entirely from music, just look and see if the lineup changes. And if the lineup has been the same or close to the same pretty consistently, then they're probably making a decent living. And if not, then they probably go home and work day jobs.
So the Faceless are just dirt poor then.
Oh, Jesus Christ. That band is a fucking train. Well, Michael Keane is a fucking train wreck. I can't speak for the rest of the guys. I don't even know who else is in that band right now. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good rule of thumb. I don't know what he does, man. I don't know how that guy earns any money. I mean, I don't know.
Will tech for a living. I wanted to. I'd feel like it'd be a real missed opportunity if we didn't talk to you about this. You have the most uniquely angry regular readers in the world. It blows my fucking mind every time that I read a post on your site. I see a face that I recall seeing like a year ago that was saying something horrible in just needlessly cruel and contradictory to the article. So, where did these people come from?
I don't fucking know. You guys are those dudes. You tell me.
I am personally not that kind of dude, and I would say that 365 is not either.
I'm offended, sir.
I had to. No, I don't know. I mean, like, is it really any worse than like going on BuzzFeed or I mean, even like New York Times? Like, if you ever looked at the comments on that, I mean, no, like, let me backtrack. Our comments are terrible. They definitely are. I'm not gonna, but like, I just think there's something about the format that just emboldens people to be dicks. And I think when you combine that with a site like ours that has opinions, I think it's kind of like a toxic brew. I mean, the way we write is very opinionated. It's not, it's meant to stoke controversy. So, I think we certainly have to accept some responsibility as far as that goes.
But I think we look out a little bit because, our 9-to-5 jobs, we don't have people constantly calling us, fucking idiots and, questioning why the site is called Metalsucks. And, this is your full-time job. So that's got to wear on you at least a little bit.
It used to, and it really doesn't anymore. I know it's sort of an ongoing thing in the Metalsucks comments as to whether or not Axel does or does not read them. But he really doesn't. I swear to God, Axel does not read the comments and hasn't for probably 7 or 8 years. And the only way he knows anything that's going on there is if I tell him or our moderator tells him. But I mean, the truth is, I don't even really read them a whole lot anymore. I just sort of like, I like to check in and I like to know what people are saying and just generally the vibe of what's going on. But at a certain point, it just stopped feeling rewarding to do so, and it's like, why am I doing this?
I feel like Axel could write a post titled like "Why Murder is Bad," and it would immediately be flooded by these people being like, "Actually, you cuck."
Yeah. It's just absurd. But I mean, the other thing is, and like I always tell people this is like, if you're a Metalsucks reader, you come to Metalsucks and you read the article, or maybe you just skip to the comments because you think they're funny, and you look at the comments and you see people talking, and that's your gauge as to how popular an article is, right? Or like how popular the site is, which from one post relative to another is a fair assessment. But the truth is that we know how many people view these articles, and it ends up being something like 0.1% of the people who view the articles actually leave comments. Like, it might actually be less than that. So, there's definitely a misconception of Metalsucks readers being a certain way where it's really only an extremely small portion of people who are that way.
Yesterday we published that thing about Shining, the gig getting canceled because the vocalist from that band is an asshole. And like on the Facebook page, these fucking like white power biker dudes started like talking shit, and it's happened a couple of times, like with Destroyer 666 as well. When we wrote a piece about that, and I'm sure that you can sympathize, we had like actual Nazis yelling at us. Because I guess that they had their feelings hurt that we wrote something about a band that they like. And I don't know how to deal with that well, because I have to poke back, and I'm sure that'll end up in me getting shot in the face one day or something for doing that. How do you?
But you have to, right? Like you have to poke back, because otherwise, if you don't, you're just complicit, and you're just allowing this to happen, and you feel like a waste. You feel like you're not standing up for something important.
I don't want to be. I won't be intimidated by dudes who cosplay in the woods with guns. Like, your mom took that picture for you, dude. Like, I don't give a fuck. So, I don't know. But you've dealt with this extensively for years. Like, there are actual Nazis out there. And, you're a Jewish dude. Like, it seems to... this anti-Semitism is real. And it's, for some reason, perpetuated into certain corners of the metal community. How do you deal with it?
Yeah, it's crazy, and it seems to have been an increase in it in the past year and a half, 2 years, or at least maybe those people feel more emboldened to speak their mind, but honestly, it makes us dig in harder. When the stuff with Destroyer 666 happened, that was what I was referring to earlier, when there were moments where I feel like I just want to quit. I was so demoralized by that, that I just, I seriously thought about giving up, especially the way it went down with, like the guy sicking all his Nazi friends on me and my family, and like posting my address, and and it was just like really fucked up. But we let our heads cool down. Axel was actually on vacation when this happened.
Smart man.
He's really, yeah, no, I know. He's really good about not checking his email or like even looking at the internet when he's on vacation. So like I knew that he didn't know about it, and I wasn't going to bother with him. So I was just alone dealing with this, with support from my wife and friends, and and lots of people in the Metalsucks community, and you guys, and and all sorts of people. But still in my head, I guess we're all alone, aren't we? It was just like once cooler heads prevailed, and he got back, and we discussed it. Like he actually was fired up. He came back all refreshed from vacation and just learning about this, and he's like, "Whoa, like fuck that!" Like we have to dig in harder. We have to go even harder. We have to, like, we can't let these fuckers get away with this shit. So like it kind of emboldened us in a way to fight back and to excuse me, to post more about social issues, which we've been making a concerted effort to do for really the past year now.
Gotcha.
But I guess that doesn't even really add. You asked how I deal with it, like on an emotional level, and I don't know. I know that they're fucking idiots, and you know that, and 99.9% of people know that. So, it's like I try not to let it get to me. Sometimes it definitely does, and the Destroyer 666 incident is one example, because that literally hit close to home. But I think it's important to just remember the overall goal, and not to get too caught up in it.
Yeah. And it helps me to remember that like KK Warslut is 5'2", so I sleep a little bit better at night.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
He's a little
That makes a
manlet.
whole lot of sense.
Yeah,
Yeah.
him. Phil O'Bonney is like 5'6" maybe. So
Yeah, that I knew. That I knew. Yeah.
There's a little man syndrome going on with these fellas.
There is.
I mean,
know.
Peter Steele would never do shit like that because he was
Right? I know.
a
He'd
big
probably
confident
just
man.
like give you a big hug.
I don't know. Jordan and I, we sometimes catch a little flack because we bring up, the proliferation of Nazis in metal pretty often because it's a serious concern for us, just as it's a serious concern that like there are actual Nazis and like, the levels of government. So there is definitely a nationalistic tide that is hitting hopefully its crest, and I don't know what comes after that, I'm afraid.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look historically, and you look at when there have been these kinds of nationalist uprisings, they always seem to be followed by a even more powerful progressive backlash that moves society forward. So, I think most likely and hopefully that's what will happen.
Yeah, I think it's websites like ours and like yours and people within the community and within bands themselves just standing up and just saying that these sort of things aren't normal, they're not right, and a lot of it is coming back and just saying this is wrong. And I feel sometimes bands and even labels don't do that enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's hard for the labels. It's hard for bands and labels. Like bands don't want to jeopardize future touring opportunities, or future label opportunities, and labels, like have to defend their bands. It's just like the whole thing is fucked up. Like people. I mean, but I think most people end up coming out on the right side of it, though. If you look at who speaks out about these things. And I think the U.S. presidential election was a good example where you saw people getting really vocal, like bands that didn't ever say anything before political, like Metallica. Like you have fucking Kirk Hammett, who's like the least vocal dude, who's kind of like has a reputation of kind of just being like a little bit of a pushover, I guess, maybe unfairly. I don't know. But, he comes out and he's like, alternative facts, like this is just white nationalism, and he's like tweeting this stuff. And it's like, wow, like good for you. That's awesome. It's so cool to see that happening.
So I'm wondering, because, I mean, you've always gotten an eye on metrics. Do you know off the top of your head what the most successful Metalsucks post of all time is?
I would say it's most likely something to do with Tim Lambesis.
Really? I mean, I guess I get it. That's
a trial.
It's a really fascinating thing, a whole circumstance. But man, it's,
yeah,
I don't think I'd met a single As I Lie Dying fan in my life before any of that happened.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, dude. I mean, like they were massively popular. Like we actually ran an article, like very early, like within the first year probably of Metalsucks. I think the headline was "As I Lay Dying: way too popular." And they're just like one of these bands that just like we never really like super got. They're like okay or whatever, but like people just like love that band. But anyway, I don't think it was necessarily As I Lay Dying fans that made the Tim Lambesis controversy popular. It was just like people like, who doesn't want to read about the guy who tried to hire a serial killer to kill his wife, like that, like the story's fucking crazy. So, I mean, I would say those posts collectively, like, I mean, dude, like Tim Lambesis paid our bills for like a good year and a half there. I'm not even joking.
Thanks, Tim.
That should be the next Metalsucks shirt.
I feel bad saying it, but I mean, like that story was just like the gift that kept on giving. Like it was insane how much people cared about that, and it also coincided. I think it was like 2013, 2014, maybe. It coincided with peak Facebook, like news algorithm friendliness, I guess you could say.
Yeah,
You know,
before they screwed your
Facebook.
reach.
Yeah, exactly. Like Facebook was like super, super generous then, and they were just like fucking sending the traffic in. So the Lambesis thing was super big. Outside of that, the Randy Blythe Czech Republic thing, also right around that same time. Um, you know what one that always does well is there was this post from very early on that I actually just copied and pasted from a venue in St. Louis called the Creepy Crawl on their website. And credited it, like said like, hey, this is from the Creepy Crawl, but it's like 39 things annoying local bands always do, or like something like that.
Oh yeah, I
Like
remember
that,
seeing that one.
like that post still inexplicably every now and then will just like catch on, and we'll have hundreds of people on it at any time, just for like we don't really know why. Like it just, and this happens periodically, and it's just one of these evergreen pieces of content that just keeps on going and going and going. So that one's definitely up there too.
I won a photo caption contest about 5 years ago, and I still haven't got my stuff. Where is it?
Oh no, what is it? What was it? Do you remember?
I think it was like a Doyle T-shirt. I don't want it. I just
That's
I just
funny.
see people occasionally will respond to another photo contest. Where like, I didn't get my CD from 5 months ago, which is like,
That's
really?
so yeah, I'm actually I just decided today I'm going to retire the photo caption contest. It's been a long running thing. I'm just tired of doing it. Like I feel like it's run its course. So RIP photo caption contest. It's been a good run.
I wanted to, Cybernetic Organism wanted me to thank you for the photo caption contest winnings that he got a little while ago. Apparently it was filled with good stuff. He also
cool.
wanted to say thanks for the Synthwave articles. He's a big fan of those.
Oh yeah, I've had a good time doing that. It's kind of like for a while really kept me going there for a while, because I mean you guys, I'm sure you get it. You get burnt out on metal, and
Oh,
you
yeah.
need new stuff that stimulates you. So when I discovered that, it was like, oh my God, there's this entire genre of music that I can explore from scratch, and like, when do you get that in life at this point? It's like being a teenager again when you're just discovering shit for the first time. It's like, holy shit. And it's easier than ever because obviously the internet makes it that way. So, I mean, that stuff has been super fun to write and learn about. I've tailed it off a little bit recently, just because I feel like I actually have written about all the good ones. It's like it's not that big of a scene. So like after a year and a half, I guess I got even a little bit burnt out on that. But now it's the biggest acts in the genre are releasing new music. So it's coming around again. Who was it last week? Mega Drive just put out a new single. I'm stoked on that, so I wrote about it. But that genre is really growing. It's cool. Metal people are into it, except for you fuckers who flush it every week. And those guys are touring. They're doing like Perturbator just did a tour. He's got another one in the fall. Ghost GOST has been doing live shows. Carpenter Brute. It's cool to see. It's cool to experience like a new genre of music.
Is there a subject that you'd like to write about outside the world of music?
That's a fun question. I actually, for a while, I was writing about the neighborhood in Brooklyn that I live, which is called Gowanus, and it's kind of like an up and coming neighborhood that was mostly industrial and now is kind of gentrifying and turning over into residential. But I'm here every day, all the time, and you just see stuff. You see new stores opening, or like construction projects, or somebody getting arrested, or so it was actually kind of like in a way I was kind of like a Gowanus beat reporter for a neighborhood blog. There was like one guy whose site I was reading every day who was doing it, and I just emailed him like, do you want any other contributors? And he's like, yeah, sure, and I like didn't want to get paid for it or anything. I just wanted to do it. So I did that for a couple of years, and it was a lot of fun. He ended up shutting down the site. I guess he just got tired of it, but that could certainly be something that I could.
So, are you near the Gowanus Canal? I'm not super familiar with the New York neighborhoods. Is that
Yeah, it's half a block from where I live. I cross over it regularly.
Is that still like a super fun site?
Yeah, I mean they're the EPA has a plan to clean it up, and it's moving ahead. Like first they had to figure out how to do it and do all sorts of studies and surveying and so that portion is mostly done, I believe. And and there's several different government agencies involved on the federal level and the state level and the city level. So it's like a big bureaucratic process, but it is moving forward, and allegedly it will be cleaned up by I think actually like 2030 or something like that. It's going to take a long time.
Well, I mean, your neighborhood's going to be really popping back then.
Yeah, like yeah. Well, I'm still here. There was one day I posted a photo on Instagram. It was like, oh, the Gowanus is looking lovely today. And then a dead rat floated by, and I was like, oh, actually. But at least it wasn't a dead human. I mean, they've definitely pulled up dead humans from the Gowanus. It was a mafia dumping ground for years and years and years.
Sweet. Well, that's fun.
Yeah.
Is there anything that you wanted the audience of the Toilet of Hell to know? An opinion you have, a fact that you have, something that you just need to push through their eardrums?
That's an interesting question. I mean, just that I love what you guys are doing. I've always been a fan. Like I feel like there's always been like a friendly little rivalry, or even like
definitely, yeah.
Where like you guys started, or I don't know if you two in particular, but some of the people are like, oh, like fuck metal sucks, like, or saying like, oh, like metal sucks must hate us, blah blah blah, and it's like, for me, like that was never the case. I think it's awesome that a community of people that started on our site went on to or that formed on our site went on to start their own thing, and like I said at the top of the call, I think it's awesome whenever there's more sites in the community.
Before we go, I have the most important question to ask. Like you, I am an unironic and unapologetic baby metal fan. I found them through Metalsucks. I've seen them twice live, including the Irving Plaza show that I think you were at.
Sick.
Are they the best band in metal as of right now?
They're pretty fucking great. I will say that I didn't like the second album as much as I did the first one. And like I don't know whether that's a factor of the novelty having worn off, or just the songs, or like where I was in my life. Like when I was getting into that first album, I actually was in Japan interviewing Marty Friedman for a Rolling Stone piece, and just like the whole thing was just completely surreal. And I just fell hard in love with that album. But I mean, they're so much fun. I think like the band, musicians are great. The girls are so talented, and but I think in the end it all comes back to the songs, right? I mean, the songs are awesome, and the live performance is so much fun.
I'm glad that you could get that in there just so that you could get the audience all riled up at the very end, Jordan.
Well, they deserve something.
Get the pedo Vince comments coming. Bring it.
Well, they're all almost over 18, so that joke's gonna be over.
I'm sure they'll find a way.
Oh yeah, it'll never end. Sorry.
Or like if they replace the girls like they do with a lot of those Japanese groups, then they can keep coming with the jokes.
Phrasing.
I mean, they probably will, right? They'll like bring in new 12 or 14-year-olds or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, like that band has to be like printing money right now, right? Like they seem to be doing everything, so would make sense.
Yeah, I mean, they're doing quite well. Absolutely.
Thanks a lot to Vince Neilstein from Metalsucks for coming on and talking to us. Everybody has proof that we're all friends and we all appreciate what we do. So let's end that little controversy right now. You can follow us online at Toilet of Hell on Twitter. You can follow me at 365 Days of Horror. You can follow Joe at Joe Thrash and Kill. Make sure to like us on Facebook and join the Facebook group. You can also send us emails, toiletofhellradio@gmail.com. Make sure to rate us and give us reviews on iTunes as well. Got anything else for us, Joe?
Yeah, my pug was like biting me this entire episode, so if you heard snorting and licking noises, I apologize.
Yeah, it wasn't me.
Yeah. Franklin the pug apologizes. We'll see you next week, everybody.
Bye.
You're listening to 66.6 FM, Radio TOVH, The Flush.